another great moment here on Sunrise Daily. Welcome. I'm Sulaiman Alede.
Good morning, Maokwe Ogun.
Good morning, I'm NEITI.
Well, when you look at the books or you follow the trend, you realize that there's always been one issue about money unremitted, and that has to do with the, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. Just yesterday, NEITI has actually said, they have a differentials of $1.7 billion exchange rate difference. That's about 175.8 billion naira, to the extent that, everyone has asked for the last time how much, so much that is accounted for. Well, the coordinating minister of the economy has said, they'll all go into a closed-door meeting and actually see what they can find out and unearth concerning the books. Don't forget that, the group managing director of the NNPC, only took charge a couple of months ago before all of this talks about some unremitted amounts from the NNPC. But the question is, with the NEITI report, are we likely to see the end of all of this talk about NNPC not bringing its book before NEITI or before the government? Who should they report to, or who should they remit these amounts? Well, it goes on.
It's like in an environment or in a society where we don't know how many barrels of crude oil that we how do you say it?
Generate
or harvest. Let's use the word harvest. We don't know how many barrels of crude oil we produce. How would you know exactly how much the government agency, NNPC being the case here, is owing? I mean, this is not the first time NEITI has talked about how much NNPC is owing. In January 2013, they came up with a report that NNPC is owing about 1.3 trillion naira. That's breaking it down, says they're owing 759.88 billion naira in dividends and loan repayments from Nigerian liquefied. That's one area. In February 2013, another report by NEITI says NNPC denies owing government. That's in February 2013. You go back and forth. In November 2011, NEITI says NNPC has not remitted 842 billion naira. So it's like it's a pile up, and nothing has been done. I know that several times the National Assembly has asked the NNPC to report, bring their books for scrutiny, but I don't know how far they've gone with that. Something needs to be done about the openness. Maybe the petroleum industry, but they say to make the NNPC more open, to make it more accountable, but would that work? As they'll say, as someone said here on the set the other day, he said it's not about the laws, it's about the working of these laws.
Is it possible if we can tie this to the loss, the NNPC and even PPPR and the PPMC has always talked about? Perhaps maybe there's
loss
a leak
in the amount of crude.
No, we're talking about oil theft now. Perhaps maybe where NEITI has come up talking about the production, and now they're also talking about the LNG. Money is remitted by the LNG to the NNPC.
The thing is, I don't think the NEITI report has to do with production loss by theft. I don't think it has to do with it.
It also has to do with that. I think it
I don't think it's
on that.
tied up to it. Has as much to do with the amount of theft, crude oil stolen, as much as it has to do with the amount of crude oil sold.
They're not even.
That's the one they are more bothered about. Not necessarily the one. Okay, they will put that on as it's given out to loss, but this one has been sold.
I don't think
of the little that has been sold, can it be accounted for? The thing is about accountability. Whether it's 1 barrel that is sold, or half a barrel, or 1 billion barrels, can it be accounted for?
That's one. And they're also talking about subsidy payment. I mean, usually from that, we're supposed to be paying back a certain amount to get back refined products. And, we've had a very long history with reports. I mean, it's a very long, complicated, interesting, intricate history with reports that should make anybody cry. The more I think about it, the more I say, are we not in trouble? Is something not wrong here? We remember very clearly the proceedings of the oil subsidy report, or is it probe done by the Senate? I think the Senate has finally come out with theirs. It took them forever. The House came out with theirs. We saw what happened. We saw that, certain committees were constituted before or after the oil subsidy scandal broke, and that, you know, one of them was the Ribadu Committee. We also saw what happened. What the Ribadu Committee was supposed to do was what? Determine how much Nigeria generates in terms of, because we said we're not sure how much we actually produce per day. That's one of the things that the Ribadu Committee was supposed to do. We saw the controversy in which that particular committee was mad. Now, you know, NEITI, the constant watchdog that continues to speak up in spite of, you know, the fact that nothing is done about anything it ever says, you know, it has brought out another report, and we're still not sure that anything will be done about it. Instead, what do we also get? We also get the Minister of Finance complaining that, you know, NNPC invested in NLNG, has been given some dividends from the profit that NLNG has made, and NNPC is yet to remit those funds to the General Federation account. So NNPC is supposed to be one of the biggest culprits in terms of one of those agencies of government that doesn't remit funds into the Federation account. I know that, you know, very soon we might get a denial of that, but that came from the coordinating minister of the economy herself. Let us also go back far back in history.
Because actually this report is as far back as 2009 to 2006 to 2009. 2006
to 2009. Now let us also remember, you know, the NNPC is not new to controversy. Remember when they had this MD who said that the NNPC was broke? I'm trying to remember his name now. But we remember...
It was removed almost immediately.
That was removed almost immediately. We also remember very clearly the Minister of State for Finance, Babalola, who said categorically too that NNPC was broke. We remember that...
point of correction, he didn't say. He read a letter that the group managing director of the NNPC sent to him.
Oh, he read it. Oh, I see. He read it, and I think that being Minister of State for Finance, he would definitely know if that letter had an iota of truth. He just won't come out to read something in public that he hadn't verified by himself in private. So he read that letter. What happened to him? He was sent to another ministry, Ministry of Special Duties, where he finally resigned, after a while, you know, and he's faded. Nobody has heard anything. Nobody knows the true state of the accounts of NNPC. Then we now heard, during the subsidy probe, we heard something about NNPC owing this amount of money, and they say, okay, you know what, pay us this money first, then we can pay the amount of the debt that we owe. And it's just all mad in controversy. Are we dealing with rocket science here, or are we dealing with finance of a company that's supposed to be transparent? After all, it's supposed to be our company, Nigeria's oil company. So when they're talking about, you know, when they're talking about the company owned by a country, NNPC is supposed to be our equivalent of Petrobras and, you know, all the other oil companies that we're supposed to be envying around the world. What exactly is going on?
Well, good enough you talked about Petrobras, but if you looked at what the NNPC has always said, little they really can do when you try to compare them with other big multinationals in other parts of the world, because of some laws actually hampering its smooth and easy operation. But perhaps a whole lot of people are owing the NNPC after getting this amount from LNG. They have been able to maybe get crude refined from abroad and bring them back home, to the extent that a whole lot is still with all of these marketers. Perhaps that is why this is also tied to the subsidy probe. So if NNPC would please speak with the minister, as she's actually asked, maybe we should be getting, an inkling as to what exactly is happening to the NNPC, which is, the major marketer here in the country. But again, let's look at what the minister and Mr. Andy Yakubu has actually come up to say they will do about this one this time. Perhaps this will actually settle it once and for all.
Nigeria's oil and gas sector is one of the most vibrant, not just as the country's economic mainstay, but for its unending question marks. Once again, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, has released yet another damning report on the sector, with key findings on subsidy payments, crude oil theft, and more. For the period under review, 2009 to 2011, Nigeria recorded a total crude oil production of over 2.5 billion barrels, from which the Federation earned a total revenue of $143 million. The report also disclosed that the federal government made total fuel subsidy payments of 3 trillion naira to importers of refined petroleum products from 2009 to 2011. But the disparity between the subsidy claims paid from the Federation account and the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, was 175.9 billion naira during the same period.
For example, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation reported to NEITI auditors a total subsidy payment of 2.825 trillion naira, while the PPPRA disbursed 3 trillion naira to marketers during the same period. This report further noted that some marketers disagreed with the amount ascribed to them by the PPPRA. In 2010 in particular, a particular marketer claimed 2.56 billion naira as fuel subsidy, but PPPRA recorded payments of 1.5 billion naira, leaving an unreconciled difference of 1.04 billion naira.
Crude oil theft and deliberate sabotage remains a financial drainage for the country, with over 136 million barrels, estimated at $10.9 billion, lost during the year under review. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, pointed out more cases of non-remittances and called for a joint review of the report by all relevant agencies.
One of the things that they pointed out is the about 4.84 billion in financial flows from NLNG, which includes dividends received by NNPC, which I'm sure, I don't know if he has discussed, but which have not yet been remitted.
We'll continue to relate, we'll continue to improve on the backlog of issues. We'll look at the recommendations, we'll implement them.
Some of the recommendations are that PPPRA should remit over 4 billion naira arising from over-recovery of fuel subsidy funds collected to the Federation account. Agree or disagree, the fact is that this report has brought a lot of issues to the table. But it now begs the question of what next, as this is not the first time NEITI is issuing such a controversial report on the oil and gas sector. The first was in 2006 and has yet to see implementation. So what happens after now with this? Doris Okenwa, Channels Television News.
Well, the minister has an answer to that. Well, quote, she says, as Minister of Finance, I don't want it on the floor here. Well, we need a very robust conversation about this money because it is extra money I can depend on as the minister.
As the Minister of Finance. What about the Minister of Petroleum?
Well, perhaps
whose ministry is directly concerned with this particular report. Did you also notice that, you know, she was not there, or maybe she was represented? Was she?
I'm sure she was. She wasn't there, but I'm sure she was represented. Someone from the Ministry of Petroleum or the NNPC or the PPPRA should have been in that place, or would definitely have been in that place.
The NNPC was there. We saw that.
They would definitely have a response. When that will come, we don't know. But I would rather they respond in action. Let's see a counter report, or let's see action being taken to see that those monies remitted or something. I mean, the funny thing is we keep hearing about this large amount of monies, and the people out there will say, hello, you mean Nigeria has this amount of money?
I'm sorry, I do not share your optimism on the fact that we would definitely get a response. I mean, that is too short. The silence from the Ministry of Petroleum is definitely...
What do you want me to bet here? We would get a response. I don't know what the response will be.
Okay.
Anyway, I think we should be asking ourselves a whole lot. Let's wait for them to come out of that particular meeting, and let's see what happens. And also, let's not be too quick to say, well, truly there exists such amount of money. You really can't be too sure if truly there exists that huge amount of money somewhere. Well, but I know someone does exist, and she's sitting pretty right there in the news studios. Good morning, Melinda.
These are the headlines. It's a sad day in Kano State as about 20 people have been killed and several others injured following explosions in the Sabongeri area. The multiple explosions hit the area after someone dropped improvised explosive devices at a beer parlor while hundreds of people were relaxing. The area has been cordoned off by members of the Joint Task Force. There seems to be no end to the scandal trailing fuel subsidy payment to oil marketers in the country. The latest is coming from the report by the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, which indicted the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, for fuel subsidy fraud. Nigeria may be facing some challenges, but foreign investors appear not to be moved. Investors from the United States dominated the just concluded €1 billion bond offered by the federal government. And on the foreign scene, 15 people are missing after a series of explosions at a gas plant in the U.S. state of Florida. 24 people were working at the Blue Rhino plant when the blast occurred. 7 people were injured and several others were flown to nearby hospital for treatment. People living within a mile of the plant have been evacuated. And those are the headlines. It's back to you, Sulaiman.
Well, many thanks, Melinda. A whole lot is happening towards the various elections we'll be having here in the country. The very first will be the one in southeast in the state of Anambra. And you know, the ruling party there, the All Progressive Grand Alliance, has been enmeshed in loads of controversies and crises to the extent that it almost tore that particular political party apart. But what we saw, well, just yesterday, something quite different as they finally made up. But this time, the first time I saw a man kissed a man, it was a betrayal kiss. Don't get me wrong, that was in the Bible. But this time around, I think this is
you saw like that one?
But,
oh, yeah. You heard of it.
when you read, you actually picture something, so you have to see it for you to believe it. But this time around, it's quite a different thing. We're getting to see, well, a kiss from 2 gentlemen.
Literally kiss and make up. I mean.
Yeah, and they said, let bygone be bygone and let's move ahead. I think, well, it looks like, according to Victor Ome, the national chairman of the party, he says it's a new dawn for the party. And it's a new dawn for Abga, especially in Anambra State. You can actually buy that with a kiss.
Sulaiman,
seal it with a kiss, more like.
More like it.
Sulaiman, I know that law says any form of amorous relationship between 2 of the same sex, and you know it's been signed. But anyway,
come on, guys.
No, okay,
come
on. Put that that's a kiss again. Are they going to jail for 14 years?
No, of course not.
But it's a good thing. It's a good development. If we could have all the bickerings, the back and forths, the backbiting, the front biting, the side bitings.
It is.
If we could get all of that.
It's a good development.
No, I mean the kissing and making up. Fantastic. If we could have all of that done, just so that the politics is not heated up. I mean, these are signs to other political parties. The PDP, maybe they should take example from this and begin to sort out their own issues so that we won't be having these kind of things. Because the truth is, as I say, when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. While they are bickering back and forth, nothing's happening. Everything appears to be at a standstill. If you go to Anambra State, those there will tell you that while the back and forth was going, while the party was all divided, nothing was really happening. I mean, the politicians on both sides are wondering, okay, who is our leader, who is not our leader? Probably now we'll now see the Abga party moving forward now that the 2 leaders have reconciled, hoping that they'll bring in the other. You know, there's one other faction that's Victor, man. What about?
No, I think it's a done deal because finally the court actually gave the verdict in favor of Victor.
I know, but there was Chekwas Okorie.
No, I think that one is.
No, I'm saying
that was
saying
way
this
behind.
is
We're talking about a Matthew Oku's side.
Matthew Oku side, and with this reconciliation, they've all come together.
Okay, you're saying
the Chekwas Okorie side should also all sides. Now we're not too sure if the Imo side of Abga is part of this reconciliation. They should all come together and let's see the party move forward. Indeed, so that we can have a viable opposition, as they will say.
Talking more
again,
like an Abga member now.
Exactly. I mean, he said, first of all, he said it was a good development, and I'm wondering, okay, how does that profit the people of Anambra State in the very first instance? I do not see how this helps them. You know, I know that I like to read some columnists, and one of my favorite will tell you that when politicians are fighting, they always say, be wary, you know, don't take sides, because when they will finally kiss and make up, you will not be there. And this is, you know, evidence to it, because as they always say in politics, there are no permanent friends or foes. All you have are permanent interests. Well, in 2013 is 2 years, at least by my own calculation, to 2015, I can tell you, Nyota, that you will, yes, I know you counted it in months, I'm counting it in years. 2 years away And we will be seeing a lot more of this kind of kissing and making up. Get ready for it.
No, this one's the elections are coming up.
Sphere. Yesterday was PDP in Lagos State telling us that we should mind our business. They are just fine within their party. They are getting things together. They are getting set, you know. They are burying their differences. They are closing ranks, you know. So we're going to be getting a lot more of this. Nobody is taking in with this. We know what's happening. What is happening is that, you know, right now, what is at stake is making sure that Anambra remains an APGA come 2015, especially now that you're seeing a divided APGA. We're hearing that the APGA in Imo is very different from the APGA in Anambra State. And, you know, one APGA is thinking of joining the APC, and another APGA, they say, is more with the ruling party, even though right now they seem to be saying, look, we're protecting our terrain, we retain our name APGA. Yes, you're welcome to come and contest, but we can tell you that this battle will not be easy. That is what is at stake right now. Nothing more. When they finally finish a particular battle, they can go back. The kissing might stop. They might go back to the trenches, because we have to ask, have the issues been addressed? What was the root cause of this particular issue? We heard that, you know, some people had to, that the governor insisted on having caretaker chairman instead of, you know, conducting elections, and that was what his party chairman wanted, and that was what, you know, caused the fracas in the very first instance. Has that been addressed? I mean, what has been your resolution on that? Is it just about kissing and making up? Let us not be taken in.
Well, anyway, it is over and they're moving ahead. Perhaps let's hear a word from them.
I have come this afternoon to pay a visit to His Excellency Mr. P2B to crystallize the various peace meetings we have had in recent time, and also to declare to the world, not only the people of Anambra, but the whole world, that the Abia crisis has come to an end.
You said it's over, and it's over. Truly over. Never. Anambra State is Abia State. We've done what no other government has been able to do here, and it will remain an Abia State. Those who think they will come here, let them have everything. There's so many other states in Nigeria, but this one
is for Abia.
It's for Abia. We'll defend it with everything.
Well, time for us to look at the front pages of some of Nigerian newspapers, and we're starting off with the Vanguard. The big story and loads of pictures there. Let's talk about this story first. INEC loses power to deregister parties. With the rider, court revokes a sack of Okoti's party. 27 others will appeal ruling. That's according to INEC. And the picture you see there, Rivers Merchants of Death, suspects on parade, Rivers State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Umbu Joseph, and his team displaying items allegedly recovered from suspected armed robbers, kidnappers, and quartered yesterday during the parade of some suspects at the Rivers State Police Command in Port Harcourt. And quickly, NJC sacks Abia acting CJ. It's on 49. And of course, UK confirms November kickoff date of £3,000 visa bond for Nigerians and others. It's also on page 49 of the Daily. While pockets of other headlines close to the masthead, Nigeria loses $11 billion to oil theft, vandalism, that's according to NEITI. And power crisis ends soon as FG increases gas supply. That's according to the Minister of Petroleum, Alison Madueke. The story is on page 24. And real sector now, Agrica's food manufacturing lifeline. Well, that's something that the Vanguard is looking at. And you have your own Mr. and Mrs. making the front page that can actually put some smiles on your face. That'll be it with the Vanguard today.
Well, the Tribune has that big picture of Boko Haram, suspected Boko Haram members being paraded, and the headline, Army arrests 42 Boko Haram members in Lagos, Ogun. Story continues on page 4, but the riders SEC plans to strike during Eid al-Fitr. That's a report from the SSS. Multiple explosions rock Kanu. You go to page 4 of the Tribune to get the details. Beside that picture, INEC loses case against deregistered parties. Don't register APC. Rival APC warns INEC. Would INEC hear that, or would they go to court? Pregnant woman and 7 others, a side tale, die in Osun auto crash. And Nigeria lost $11 billion to crude oil theft, pipeline vandalism in 3 years. That's from that NEITI report. You have to check page 2, 48 and 49 for those stories. Then just below the nameplate, NJC sacks Abia CJ over forgery. Probe others for low performance. Page 2, and police file fresh charges against Rivers House leader to investigate the speaker. Page 4. That's it for the Tribune.
On this day's next, a major headline this morning, NEITI $10.9 billion lost to crude oil theft in 2 years. The riders, pipeline vandalism in downstream sector denies Federation of $894 million. So that's money we could have earned, but we've lost owing to crude oil theft. $894 million. Okonjo-Iweala invites NNPC to clarify $8.476 billion unremitted fund. That's a lot of money. $8.476 billion unremitted fund. You find details on page 8 of the same newspapers. Going to the top of the nameplate, Boko Haram, 42 suspects arrested in Lagos, Ogun. 10 feared killed as explosions rock Kano. It's on page 8 of the paper as well. Coming to the bottom, INEC to decide APC's fate Thursday. So Thursday has been set as D-Day for them. It's on page 8. Terrorism. Trial of Lebanese begins as federal government calls 3 witnesses. You find details on page 6 of the same newspapers. And the picture there has been tagged back to being friends. And what do you have there? Hugging themselves. They didn't capture the kiss. I would have loved to see the kiss in still picture. Oh, that'll be all for this day.
Well, The Guardian is next, and the big story, NEITI's audit report jolts government oil industry. With 4 riders, orders PPPRA to pay 4.4 billion naira to government. NNPC others to refund 3.7 billion naira. Corporation owes government 1.305 trillion naira. Nigeria loses $10 billion to oil theft. There's a huge one there on the front page of The Guardian, and the picture you see there of the Vice President Namadi Sambo and Governor Tanko Almakura of Nasarawa State during his visit to Lafia just yesterday. 42 Boko Haram suspects arrested in Lagos, Ogun. It's on page 2. And for allegedly falsifying his age, the acting Chief Judge of Abia State, Justice Shadrach Wanosike, has incurred the wrath of the National Judicial Council, that's the NJC. NJC seeks Abia Chief Judge's retirement over false age. It's there on the front page, and it continues on page 2 also of The Guardian. Well, that will be it with The Guardian, as well as a look at the papers this morning. We'll be back. Stay with us. Well, a whole lot happening in the polity. Joining us to talk about this morning is Senator Ayo Arishi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, a whole lot, so many things in my mind. Trying to talk about the reconciliation moves by a lot of political parties, the PDP, which you are also a member. There are also so many issues happening in your own state of origin, Ekiti State. The PDP in Lagos is putting its house in order. There's also the talk about the constitution review. But let's start from home. What exactly is happening as every political party is moving to actually reconcile, or should I say, warring parties?
Yes, I think Ekiti seems to be on the path of full reconciliation in terms of there's a move by all the aspirants, majority of them to work together, and that will be the first major step towards achieving success in 2014. As of the last count, about 16 of the aspirants have decided to work together, and they decided to condemn violence in the state, and they have spoken with one voice. And this means that if 16 of the aspirants are very solid people in their individual rights, are able to come together to say we will work together towards a consensus candidate, then it actually is a pointer to the fact that people are serious about wrestling power from the opposition, particularly in Ekiti, come 2014. And I believe the problem of the party, which mostly emanated from the Congress of 2012, is now almost put to rest, because it's now clear that everybody wants to move the party forward, and ensure that there is victory at the polls. Because without victory, it will be totally meaningless. There will be nothing to quarrel over. I think it's sensible for everybody to come together and ensure that we go back to the state.
Because if you look at what is in today's Vanguard, Ekiti PDP chairman, 16 aspirants push for Fayoshe's suspension, coming together but not actually putting some right inside the house. Now we're talking about the former governor of the state, Fayoshe, as well as I think 3 others. 4 others, they say they remain suspended over their alleged roles in their violent attack on some party members. And people say if truly the PDP in your state is set out for true reconciliation, they should be able to actually bring all of those parties in.
Well, reconciliation does not mean sanctioning discipline. It's not synonymous with sanctioning violence. If we keep quiet and people continue to get away with problems as serious as a very vicious attack on the former Speaker of the State House of Assembly, who is also the legal advisor for the party. The gentleman was hospitalized for days, and when people go in and they begin to shoot, this is not what politics is all about. This is not why people like myself is in politics. We don't think that we'll be able to have the sympathy of the people of the state, the intellectuals. We all pride ourselves as Ekiti people that we're well tutored, well groomed. We have very many people of integrity, who we will not condone a situation whereby, somebody today just got injured, seriously injured. Tomorrow, we might have a dead man on our hands if this is unchecked.
Senator Arishe, let's just hold it there. We'll come back and talk about the violence that led to all of this just after this break. We'll be back. Senator Arishe, we're looking at the PDP crisis specifically in Ekiti State. You were talking about the violence that led to the suspension of some members in the PDP in Ekiti State.
Yes. And we all came together. There is a collective risk to everybody. And the issue of our former governor, Fayoshe, I don't think anybody will lose sleep if we don't have him in the PDP. That's the honest to God truth. Because every election we've had since he left office is worked against us in the PDP. It's just that the party, I don't think they're serious about discipline, because when things like that happen, and he was suspended, and he went on air to say that the PDP was dead in Ekiti, as if those of us there, we can't for nothing. So everybody felt, look, hey, where are we coming from? In any event, we have a formidable opposition on our hands.
Did he physically attack the
No, obviously it's...
or he sponsored someone
it's those people, I mean, he was the advocate of not supporting the consensus candidate as advised by Mr. President. And they were to constitute a committee to start the process of how the modalities would be towards getting the consensus candidate. And they went in there to attack, his supporters went in there to attack the secretariat on the day of the inauguration of the committee. And we felt nobody is afraid of primaries in Ekiti. For us, we do not mind primaries. But Mr. President advised, and we felt that it made a lot of sense to everyone, that if we're so, fractionalized, where you start having like 16 up to 20 aspirants, the moment to go outside the primaries, somebody who fails to win, and there will be the issue of winner takes all, in which case whoever wins during the primaries believes is entitled to make his group appoint the senators, appoint the House of Rep members, appoint the commissioners. These are the bane of the problem, the crisis in most states. So we now came together to say that this makes a lot of sense. If we're talking about consensus, everyone who has an input, the aspirants will have an input. And you all know that, look, you are the first among equals. It does not give you the right to believe that every other person can't. So it makes a lot of sense. And for us, we are looking for a way to ensure that we face the opposition frontally. We have a PhD holder running the state. We have a professor as the deputy. Now, can't we imagine within ourselves that we need somebody that is very capable to tackle these people? To take them on. You don't have to have a PhD, but you must have a level of education that is acceptable to the people of Ekiti. So for us, and you don't have to carry any baggage anyway. Not serious ones. But for us, we have looked at it. We want to move forward with the party. But moving forward does not mean we have to take everybody in. If you will be a source of problem to the party.
The issue of discipline in political parties, this is not the first time it's come up. But it's as though it's a recurrent decimal.
Of course.
What can be done to take care of that?
Well, let people just, from any level of government, let us act within the confines of the law. Let us believe that we have something guiding us. If you just leave everyone together in any lawless society, and there is nothing controlling you, like the constitution that we have, we must begin to preserve this thing and say, look, if you have a party constitution, whatever the guidelines are must be followed.
But then some other people will put it this way: is it the party as against service to the people? What is driving the politicians to seek office? Is it service to the people, or is it accruing of wealth?
I can assure you that for now, I think I have another interview in the Guardian of today. As it stands today, the main driving force is acquisition of wealth. That's it. Because there are no jobs. And everybody looks at politics as a way of making money. Because if you look at it, to see somebody who maybe you can measure his value. As soon as he becomes governor and he leaves office, he begins to control stupendous wealth. And you now look at it, why would people not be attracted to such a position? More so, nobody's asking questions. Nobody's going to jail. When you take people to court in this country for actions that are inimical to the interests of the people they have governed, you can be rest assured that justice is very far away. And so, everybody we all do things with impunity. There are people ordinarily who would love to serve. But the moment you get there will be people who will be goring you, oh, this and that. Well, I want to say with exceptions. At least I worked with Shegoni. He was in government. And I can tell you that he made no money. And he will be one of the few exceptions in this country. who had been governor, who did not make money from government.
Well, some people will say it's because you worked with him.
Not only the fact that I worked with him, I know him very well. And I know that even the house he has in his hometown, friends came together to put it down for him. So I know that even if he did not do some things right, he was a very upright person. So for us, we can be very emotional about that guy.
Let's go back to this issue of consensus candidate. For some, they would argue that if your party is so sure that 16 of you have come together in that party to say, well, we are for consensus candidate, and you have maybe perhaps 4 who are against it, then you can as well put that to vote and or go ahead with the primaries, and let's see how the other 4 will gather votes enough to emerge winners. So why put suspension on them when you knew that you have 16 on your own side?
No, the suspension is as a result of the violence they meted out.
Not as on account of their rejection of the consensus policy.
If they do not want consensus, and they come up with this kind of idea of let's go into voting, that is the civilized way of doing things. When you go out there to go and visit violence on people, and already we have problems in the Southwest. Problem of the fact that, look, what kind of image have we created for our party? When we look at Ekiti, what kind of leadership are we pointing to? You will see that even those who are leaders in the past, the likes of Professor Adeniran, Professor Borishade, all of them, they have more or less sat back, looking and watching what is going on. Because many of them, they find it difficult to understand how come the party has degenerated to this level. So if we know the problem...
That's what your party should answer, because now you should be answering such, because once upon a time you had sway, especially in the Southwest.
Exactly.
How did you lose the entire Southwest should be what should concern the PDP.
Well, in terms of losing in Ekiti and Osun, that was not as a result of incompetence or anything on the part of those governing, but it was as a result of Salami's judgment, which I have always been here to contest. So he actually dashed those estates to ACN. They did not win an election.
What about Ogun State?
Ogun State is a different scenario. Ogun State had a governor, an outgoing governor, now who was at loggerheads with Baba. And of course, there was a very big split in the party, and Amosu cashed on that crisis. And so, if you look at Ibadan too, they were mostly the PDP people working against themselves. And that's why we are saying, if we have a consensus, issues like that would go into the back burner.
So the PDP, is it that the PDP has done a research and they have found out that, you know, it would seem that consensus candidates would be the way to go in almost all areas?
Not in every place, but the Ekiti election is very critical to the PDP.
Not in every place?
Not in every place.
So you wouldn't recommend it as a solution in some other states that seem to be having the same problem?
Well, there will be states, I would imagine that Lagos might come out with a consensus candidate at the end of the day. It's very, very likely. Most likely that's what will happen. In Ekiti, we have strong opposition on our hands. We have a very short period to campaign, and we believe we are just too many on the field to begin to go into primaries. If we go into primaries with about 20 people, you find out that each person will have a little bit of his own conclaves here and there. Now, somebody least expected who comes in with maybe tons of money might just hijack the candidates.
Then what happens to the place of the test of popularity?
Oh, popularity only comes in when you are talking of the case of general election.
Not in
the primaries, it is dictated more by financial wherewithal. It's not so much about how popular you are.
But should that...
Because let's look at Ekiti. We have about 900 people who vote for governorship. Like, hypothetically, take somebody coming in, giving every delegate about $1 million. So what do you do to that?
But should that be the case? Should it be about
exactly? That's why we are saying we would rather go consensus. So if we go that other way, then you discover that some people, either they have gotten their money legitimately, or in a questionable manner, they can come in and hijack the party.
But then some will say, yes, it's not possible that someone could, that same financial power, settle every of the delegates and be given the consensus ticket.
There will be no delegates at this time, this consensus. Now, I will be one of those deciding who the consensus will be. The likes of Caleb Ulubolade, Senator Oluporoko, Akerele, that's Otumba Akerele.
Which means that, sorry to interrupt you there, but would that means that they have a smaller clique to settle?
No, I am saying that who wants to come and settle me with how much? I'm just telling you the caliber of people who will be taking this decision. So what would you want to come?
I thought they said everyone has a price.
Well, they might.
Especially in politics.
They might in politics. For those who don't have any other job, it's not impossible. But I don't know how much money anybody wants to give me. You know, for me to now change my vote because of that.
Tell us what you're thinking towards 2015, because we've always even argued amongst ourselves that to you, politicians, well, 2015 is just some days away.
Yeah. It's 2014. So how was this 2014? It's just next year.
No, I'm talking about nationally, looking at the elections. I understand Ekiti State is going to the polls in 2014. But when we see politicians talking about 2015, which is almost 2 years, but to the politician, is that too far away to prepare?
Well, because most people are full-time politicians. And that is their job. So they have to politic. If you talk about 2 years, it's not really that too far away. But for those with the responsibility of governance, it could be a source of distraction. But there is nothing we can do about it. Even while the character sitting down might not be the architect of such, those surrounding, the hangers-on who want to hold on to their position, will continue to politic. And that is what hits up there. It's not usually about the main person on the seat, because he has jobs to carry out on a day-to-day basis.
Does it really worry the PDP that they've not been able to, get some states, for instance, like Lagos?
With Lagos, yes, PDP has not been able to get Lagos up to date, but I have a feeling that this coming election will be very different. The people of Lagos State, they are ready for a change to see what actually can this other person offer us, because we've seen a regime of serious taxation, a regime of, it's
but they've also seen a regime of work.
They have seen a regime of work, which is very relative too, because they've only been comparing what Fashola has done to what Tinubu did. Those were the two people so far, and they are both ACN people. Now there are people coming in from the PDP, coming in to say, look, we will do a lot better, and that is they've laid the ground up. Anybody coming in to govern now cannot do less. We have to do more. But if now that the PDP has so many reasons to campaign, and they have things they can point to, that look, we will do this better. This regime of multiple taxation and the poor people suffering on a day-to-day basis in Lagos, we're not talking about Ikoyi and Victoria Island. This is just a fraction of the population of Lagos people. You can find them in Alimosho, in Agege Motion and all that. So let us see the quantum of development in these places, and let's begin to measure. And these are people that when you go into cities like New York, even where you used to call slum, the Harlems of those days, they are now completely rejuvenated. So we're talking of development. We can't have those shackles, that people still continue to live in, and we are saying we are working. There are people you will see the kind of candidate that
but you know, as you work, as you try to see what you can do about Lagos and so many other states like your state, Ekiti,
yes, Ekiti.
We're also talking about the merger, which is almost a done deal. Isn't that likely to upset the PDP even at the national level?
I have always said that we can't afford to take any opposition lightly. But in a state like Ekiti, where you talk about APC, who are the people margin to become APC? They are the ACN people. They are not different. The population is not changing. The ideology is not changing. It's still the ACN people that we're running against. Even if they call them their name, now APC, or they change to another name, they are still the same people. It's different from where you have maybe AMPP that had some presence, margin with CPC and all that. So they could have some effect. But when you still look at it geographically, the PDP will still win the general elections. Because PDP, even in those states, will still be able to have 25%. And there are states where PDP will have about 90, 80, 90, 95%.
Well, are you sure? Okay, with the recent court judgment faulting INEC's deregistration of some parties, are you sure some of those other parties will not want to join them, giving them more clout in the different states?
Oh, but I may come to think of it. The party that got judgment. That's Chris Okotie. Chris Okotie's party, Fresh, and the others. How many people is he going to bring to APC? I mean, let's face it. Without the structure, those who have the parties that you can call serious parties in this country today are PDP, ACN, AMPP, and CPC. At least CPC has one governor. But parties that do not even have a councillor, I will start counting them as parties. Then it's just the fact that we're not really serious about facing what the problem of this country should be. We should be looking more even at two-party system. I'm an advocate of a two-party system. I don't believe that one party must continue to win.
You know, and now you talked about advocacy. It reminds us of your time at the Senate, because we really don't have enough time. Let's quickly look at the Constitution review, and let's pick the issue of local government autonomy. If you were there, what would you have voted for?
For me, I would have voted for the local government autonomy with a lot of definition. Those who were coming to become chairman, we would have a minimum qualification. They must have some training. They must have some education. Otherwise, many local government today, they just go in there, they share the money, they go back to their respective states. They do no job. And such things would cause worry for many people. But at the end of the day, moving forward, what should the Constitution look like? We must be making amendments to ensure and guarantee more of a federal constitution. You have the autonomy of the local government under the state in terms of budgeting. But the states should be solely in charge of creating local government, not the federal government. So these are the areas. But if we must run this kind of system, that is the Constitution, we must grant a level of autonomy to the local government. But if we were to run a true federal state, we must enable the states to create, because they are the ones that understand how their federating units or how their local governments are growing and how the cities are growing. So they should be able to create local governments asset when they feel a particular area is due for more local governments. And that is the area that you have a little problem in this Constitution. Listing 774 local governments is an anomaly, because it presumes that the country will not grow, that the local governments will not grow, and so they will not have to expand, you know, in terms of services and provisions of infrastructure and all that to those local government areas.
You know,
that must be expunged from the Constitution.
Sorry about them. Before we go, I see two things here which is tilting towards the ACN. There's a principle. First, the Lagos State ACN had to create more local government. And secondly, the consensus candidacy issue, which a whole lot of people, even then the PDP, had criticized the ACN for, is what your party in Ekiti State is actually, using to get its candidate for, in the 2014 election. Is it that, you have started learning from the ACN?
No. The ACN, they do not do consensus.
What do they do?
Senator Tinubu, the governor, picks the candidate.
The former governor.
The former governor picks the candidate for the ACN. It's not a consensus.
So what's the difference between handpicking and consensus?
Handpicking and consensus are two different things. When you talk about consensus, all of us will sit down. Those interested and the leaders of the party.
There will be a conclave of sorts.
Exactly. We'll all sit down and say, okay, of all these people, we'll all go through interviews and discussions and all that. And there will be peer group contribution too. So we will come up with somebody to say, okay, we are happy with this person.
But how do we determine the leaders?
Oh, no, we have leaders in the state. I mean, you have many of them that you cannot question. We have the likes of Justice Jolakwe, who is there. You have Babafe Babalola, who is a leader. You know, we have so many of them there. You have the beauty members, Uyelu, you know, you have many people who all sit down and discuss and look at the candidates and come up with a consensus candidate. That is consensus. But if the president has said, look, go and put this man there, that's a different matter. That is when you have problems.
Are we likely to see any upset in 2014?
Well, we would upset in terms of governance.
Yes.
No, it will not be an upset for us to defeat Governor Fayemi because he didn't win any election in the state. So we will defeat him now thoroughly so that the courts will not be able to help him.
Well, Senator Ayarishe, we'd like to thank you for finding time to join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, time now for us to go back to the news studios. Melinda, now your turn.
Thank you so much, Lyman. It was a sad day in Kano State as about 20 people have been killed and several others injured following an explosion in the Sabongeri area. The multiple explosions hit the area after someone dropped improvised explosive devices at a beer parlor while hundreds of people were relaxing. The area has now been cordoned off by members of the Joint Task Force. There seems to be no end to the scandal trailing fuel subsidy payment to oil marketers in the country. The latest is coming from the report by the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NEITI, which has indicted the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, for fuel subsidy fraud. And Nigerians may be facing some challenges, but foreign investors appear not to be moved. Investors from the United States dominated the just concluded €1 billion bond offered by the federal government. And on the foreign scene, 15 people are missing after a series of explosions at a gas plant in the U.S. state of Florida. 24 people were working at the Blue Rhino plant when the blast occurred. 7 people were injured and several were flown to nearby hospitals for treatment. People living within a mile of the plant have been evacuated. And those are the headlines. Sunrise Daily continues after this short break.
At this special time, there is no greater virtue than sharing the nourishment of Peak in special Ramadan packs. Ramadan Kareem from Peak.
If you want to know what's trending or you miss your favorite live shows, you can watch it all on our YouTube channel. Simply log on to www.youtube.com/channelsweb. Scroll down to your favorite program and click play. You can also view all uploaded videos by clicking on View All. Don't forget to subscribe and get the latest videos. If they are interesting, like them and be heard. Get connected with the channel's television YouTube page. The news at your fingertips.
Well, a whole lot happening in Abia State. You must have seen the news report about some developments in the state concerning, well, an alleged report by an online journalist to the extent that the state government has come up to say, well, all that you saw from him were all false, and in fact he demanded money from the state government before he went to town with that particular report. Joining us to look at the Abia State issue, the developments in Abia State this morning, is an indigent and a public affairs analyst from Abia State, Cheguze Ubani. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, a whole lot of issues happening development-wise in Abia State, and particularly that particular report that showed a lot of pictures about what is happening in the state. The government has said, well, people are hell-bent in tarnishing its image and bringing up false stories and pictures. You're from that state. What do you make of what is happening in your own state?
Yes. Let me first of all thank Channels television station for having this way of letting people air their views, whether for good or for bad. I can tell you that it has gotten to a point in Abia State where youths in public places are beginning to see some media organizations as complicit to the shenanigans going on in the state. Because we live in a place where used to have several industries that had the potentials to take Nigeria, not just Abia, beyond where we are industrially, because it triggers from somewhere. By 1983-84, Aba, the commercial nerve center of today's Abia State, had identified close to 2,000 small and medium scale enterprises. And
that was in the early 80s.
In the early 80s. And the first indigenous company to be quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange was from that environment, Onwuka High-Tech Industries. At that point, we were manufacturing rocket nails. These things we import from even Vietnam today. So, as people suffering from myopia laid their fangs on the resources of the state, plundered it, and this collapse set in, we began to wonder, what is going on? And the answer is not far-fetched. Another industry has taken over Abia, and that industry is sycophancy. So, you want to make money from the governor, cook up one award, give him icon of democracy in a state that has never conducted local government elections. That is where you award icon of democracy.
But a lot of states haven't actually conducted.
That's what I am saying. So can't someone do it right?
Abia is no exception.
Can't someone do it right? Why must we be part of those? We would have ignored it. Like you said, every other state in Nigeria is not conducting local government elections. But why are you bagging icon of democracy? Where is that coming from? So let's not even get distracted with that. In terms of development, Abia is backwards. I drive around the country. Very recently, I moved from Enugu through Abakaliki, Ukep, and pass through the Tigidi Bridge into Calabar. You see work going on in states. You see caterpillars, you see earth movers working. State, federal government projects. Our state has not done any work that is sustainable.
Sorry, if I may come in. Let me just take you back a little bit to the area of investment and industrialization. You mentioned one of those companies, Onwuka High Tech Industries.
Right.
I also know that there used to be a Star Paper Mills and all of that. But the question is it the government that killed these industries or the management?
Yes, I'll tell you. Everywhere in this country, including Abia, you see governors and political office holders junketing to different countries of the world, attracting investments, which means government understands the role it should play in bringing investments. But you don't need to go to China to bring investment. When the small investor, the local investor that can put his 500,000, put his 1 million, put his 10 million and 100 million, has no access roads. When we talk about palm produce, because it's not just about the oil, palm produce cuts across a litany of byproducts. We have them. As I speak with you, squatting in Lagos, I have well over 100 plots of land in my community, and none is worth 50,000 naira because there are no roads.
But I think
Lagos can survive on land deals alone.
But we've seen some roads constructed by the government. For instance, the Intiga-Umbosi road in Sialangwa North local government area. That's another road the government has actually done.
Have you passed that road? Have you passed any of these roads? That's why I started by telling you that it got to a point where Abia indigents were beginning to feel that the media houses are part of this nonsense. Because somebody commissions a borehole project, okay, with a small security house. The media guys in his government, because I am sure he won't sit down and ask these people to do it, but because he has an ego that needs to be massaged. So these young men who have nothing else to do but to massage the Oga's ego, take pictures of this same project from different angles and take to the media.
You know what?
We have had, we have had an issue of a water project being commissioned somewhere in Abia. They went to this day, took 4 pages, color pages, to advertise the same project. Is there one full color?
And you have evidence of this?
Oh, sure. These are there. On the 14th of last month, Punch newspapers published from page 73 to 81 list of projects done in 12 months in Akwa Ibom State. That's behind me there. List of projects from page 73 to 81. A list of projects, date of commissioning. So go and verify without pictures. And these were 448 projects done in 12 months.
Have you also verified the projects?
They are verifiable, and I'll tell you
in your
why.
state, because because now they're saying that some people have actually come up. Look at what we have here: attempt to extort money from Abia State government by someone. It is right there over the weekend, because they have refused to actually budge from some of these people who come in the guise of maybe journalists or analysts or concerned Abians.
Yes.
They go out to town to rubbish the good works, the legacy projects of the government.
You see, I also told you that since our industries collapsed, that a new industry has sprung up, and that is psych fancy.
No, but let's get something straight.
And that's why
you talked about, sorry to butt in there, you talked about the collapse of industries.
That's right.
Did not happen from 2007 to now, or from 2011 till now. The collapse of industries, I'm sure, must have been something that, I mean, because you talked about the industry that was enlisted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in the 80s.
Correct.
When did this collapse happen?
Okay. You see, government is a continuum.
Agreed.
Good. And each time there is this collapse, it takes a government that headed by a visionary, a government that can assimilate, incubate ideas, a government headed by someone who is not myopic of to see that this trend of collapse needs to be stopped. So and I will give you an example.
In other words, and it's very important to get straight. In other words, yes, your grounds is that the government hasn't done enough to revive this collapsed company.
Because they don't even have an idea. You cannot do enough if you don't have an idea of what to do.
Not that they collapsed the companies themselves.
Let me tell you, of course, it is progressive. If you cannot stop the trend, then it continues. Every wrong action you take deteriorates the situation. Look at what happened in Lagos State. Without trying to blow anybody's trumpet, a set of guys came in 1999 and saw this decay coming, and they said this thing has to stop. If you used to know Marina before 1999 and see Marina today, you will know that some people knew that this is the central business district of Lagos. This is the hub. Let us stop this decay right now, and then from here we go back. Some people did it. They could have also said, hey, I didn't cause this, I didn't start it, so let it continue.
The reason I'm asking this question is
that's what I'm trying to say.
Somebody will say,
if you knew Kudirat Abiola Way before 1991, it used to be Orego Road. If you knew it, if you knew Lawansi in Itire Road, if you knew Awolowo Way in Ikeja, I mean in Ikoyi, but some people say, hey, let us stop this nonsense. And then from there, you build. And when people see that you're making conscious efforts to revive the fortunes of your state, ideas will flow. No governor does it alone, but you have to have the capacity to sit and understand what people are bringing to you.
The reason I'm asking this question is to ask you if you have any particular grounds against this governor of Abia State, current governor of Abia State, Theodore Orji.
I have grounds against this government. If
his own particular government,
if this government should do what is right, for God's sake, I wouldn't have reason to be here by 7 a.m. What I'm saying is this: I drive around the country. I reside in Lagos, but I maintain a very strong presence in my community. That means that every now and then I am traveling home. Okay?
And you go by road?
I go by road.
And you're not a member of any political party?
I needed to even say that. As at this moment, I don't belong to any political party. Verify that. My challenge is this: that each time I have to go home for any reason, I will change my shock absorbers, I will change my ball joints, I will change stabilizer linkages. Now, if this is happening to a private person who has, some reasonable means of livelihood, I want you to know or imagine what is happening to the poor people who do not have alternatives. So their lives is stagnated, they can't grow, they can't do anything.
Let me ask you this question. A moment here. Sorry, Mark. Osato has just asked a question here. We have so many tweets coming in from Abia State.
That's right.
And, well, it might interest you to know that almost everyone here, over 15 of them, are on the same page with you. I'm yet to see another one. But by the way, we're supposed to have the Abia State government representative. We were supposed to do this last week. We had to move it to Tuesday, which we thought they had agreed to come on. They're not here yet. For Osato, he's asked her to ask you this question, that, well, he saw 7 dialysis machine and clinics on television, that we should ask you, are you saying that those were also fake from your state?
I will tell you something. One Toyota Land Cruiser 2013 is 23 million naira. 23 million naira. And then you preside over a poor state. I'm not just talking to my governor now, I'm talking about governance. So you preside over a poor state and you put these things on your convoy and change them, change your fleet at will. Then my community is in darkness. since amalgamation. My grandfather died in 1987. Wake him up today, he will go around the community recognizing everywhere. So there has not been any change. And you flaunt these things, drive these cars. To take, at the level we are now, about 10 million naira will give a whole community of over 500,000 people electricity. And you're not doing that. And then somehow dialysis machine. Fine, you have done that. I will not deny him. I have not come here to run him out completely or anybody. But what I am saying is that there is too little for so much. The confusion here is this: they want to distract us to keep looking at the center. Hey, the federal government. Hey, the federal government. Most of them are knights in churches, super elders, and financiers. They know the story of the talents. The little you have been given, what have you done with it? So, if he has done dialysis center, good luck to him. But that is not all he should have achieved, having spent about 16 years in government.
Now, some people say that his greatest achievement is actually in the area of security.
Very good.
And that Abia State used to be, you know, notorious for kidnapping, which has since been on a decrease in the state.
Very good.
Do you agree with them?
How did kidnapping start?
We also have to go into how it started.
If you want to remind me that Abia used to be a state of kidnappers, then I can also remind you that it is this same Abia that produced women that resisted colonial taxation. But in this state today, all our women do is to tie wrappers with the governor's image and walk about singing songs.
Because you're happy about the development.
So, no, because they're hired. We have seen in this country a high-profile politician going to courts. On the day of his sentencing, people were singing, hoping he would be released. At the end of the day, they went home disappointed. And many of them said, you know, told us how much they were paid to be there. So, hiring crowds doesn't say anything. Without also trying to blow anybody's trumpet. You remember when Governor Shomole said that you don't need a touring team to tell Edo people what the infrastructure or what governance is about. Let Edo people decide themselves. And we used to know what Benin City, all other parts of Edo. Today, you may want to lie down and sleep on the road, on Akpova Road in Benin City.
You mentioned infrastructure.
Because it's a big challenge.
Yes. There's a road, Umule Road. You know Umule Road?
Very well. Aba is my hometown.
It's been fixed, hasn't it?
Has it been fixed? Have you been there? Let me tell you what's going on.
Roads These like guys, Fox Road, Brass Road.
Fox Road has been abandoned. Look at what happens. When you see our governor appear on TV commissioning roads, that's why we blame the press. Nobody goes back to see the quality of work done.
So is it a question of quality or that it's not done?
But it's about quality. If
is it that it's been done and then it's dilapidated after a while?
Of what you are doing, we are talking about the quality of governance, the quality of life of the people.
No, you don't understand. The question is,
I want you to understand.
Is it that it's been done, but it's not done qualitatively? I want you to
understand this. If in December you pour laterites, pour coal tar on the road, December, very dry season, and we come home and drive around Christmas, January, February, the rain sets in and washes all that away. Will you say that job has been done?
Well, Samson,
what will be the quality of life of the people from February till November?
Allow me to take this very quickly. Samson Oji says, well, these are tissues of lies coming from you. He says Ariaria market, for instance, Ariaria changed infrastructurally last year, and it is also verifiable. That's from Honorable Samson Oji.
Visit. That's why we blame the press. That's why I wasn't particularly pleased with the what's it now? The Labran Marcus
Good governance.
Good governance tour. You see, these people embark on guided tours. There is nothing stopping the press. Visit Aba. Visit other parts of Abia, because Aba is not about Abia is not about Aba alone. But why some of us are worried is that this is supposed to be the engine room of the state. When this same Abia was created out of Imo, a lot of people felt that Imo was going to collapse because the industry was in Aba. Aba is not a town. Aba is an industry. The area this fellow is talking about, you need to visit A-Line. You need to visit the market itself and the neighboring communities that had sprung up with several homes turned industries in those days.
On the question of security, you didn't quite concede
what
that.
I am talking about.
Would you also agree that, you know, there's some measure of security has returned to Abia State?
Let me tell you something about security, because this is a field I play on. It is very easy to claim to have recorded this. And I keep saying, what is the quality of work done? Yes, Aba or the kidnappers have been killed, okay? And those alive ran away. Now, if we want to dwell on that and deal with that, you know, with all manner of civilization and civilized norms, why couldn't we get one or two of these guys? Interrogate, try, get the facts. Let us know why these boys got into this thing in the first place. But we chose to waste them. If I say some of these things, it will look as if one is in support. So I will leave that. But I can tell you that we couldn't have murdered our belligerents the way we wasted these boys without getting information from them. So if we really want to have sustainable security in Abia State, we should have done the right things. But the way it is now, we are living on a time bomb that will still.
Well, I think on that note, well, we're still expecting the representatives of the government of Abia State. Perhaps, well, we'd like to thank you very much for coming on the program this morning. We'll see if our producers have been able to get to the man in question who's alleged to have asked for 5 million naira from the government before publishing those pictures that the state have come up to say were actually false and fabricated. His name is Don Norman. Once again, Chigozie Obani, many thanks for coming on Sunrise Daily. Well, another moment here, and we will be back shortly. Stay with us.
At this special time, there is no greater virtue than sharing the nourishment of Peak in special Ramadan packs. Ramadan Kareem from Peak.
Well, a quick one with the man in the eye of the storm, Don Norman Obina. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. Well, anyway, I think we can see so many pictures you have here published online, over 20 pictures, and the state has come up to say you did this because, well, they refused to budge to your request of they paying you 5 million naira.
In fact, if you look at that press release, actually, you find out that it's just an empty press release that was impulsively, came up with by the chief press secretary to the governor. I'm talking about Chief Ugochukwu Emezue. When I got to Abia State last month, I think last month to be precise, I didn't tell them I was in Abia State. I went to Abia State simply because of the speech my governor made on the 29th of May this year. That's the Democracy Day. So I'm getting to Abia State with the speech, I decided to investigate, look at those projects they've been making noise about. On getting to that project, I was just angry. To say the least, I was very, very angry. Now, in the speech, I can remember vividly that the governor said that the old secretariat, which was built by the federal government, if you look at this, just there on the internet, because one Obed Asibu placed it on the internet, that building has been rebuilt and renovated. On getting to that building, I saw a building that was just horribly painted, and people told me, a PAMSEC told me that paint was done horribly because of the good governance team. I think I have the picture. As the program progresses, we'll look at it. Now, I got inside the building, I snapped the wall, the staircase, I snapped the roof. I saw a leaky roof, and I was wondering, what could this be? People talked, there was no toilet as we speak. But you can't use going to the toilet, talk of using it. They told me that they, whenever they are pressed, they go to the bush, nearby bush to, ease themselves. And I was wondering, why would the governor say such a thing? Not even that. Ugochukwu Emezue, posted the road of Mivatin Road on television, saying that government has done this. The Mivatin Road we are talking is just, those that know about it will tell you that Mivatin Road is just less than 500 meters. Less than 500 meters, because Mivatin Road started as a road, I think, to Ezekiel just 500 meters. So if that is what my governor has done in 6 years' time, then what is the need of celebrating mediocrity? It doesn't make any sense. I am not a politician, I'm a journalist. And I want to say here that I want to challenge Abia youths to rise to the challenges of democracy and elitism. They should learn how to ask questions about, verisimilitude of every claim by government. This attitude of flunkism will not take them anywhere. But that is the reason Abia State government is still doing what they are doing.
Did you take these pictures to them asking for money not to publish them?
Let me tell you, on 5th, when I came back from Abia State, on the 5th of July, I can give you my password, that's my internet password. You see what transferred between me and Ugochukwu Emezue. I now sent a letter. I sent a letter telling him that journalism is predicated upon fairness, objectivity, balance, and accuracy. Then I have a lot of information here with me that it will be unfair not to hear from their own side. So what I did was to send, when I called him, I said, I'm sending a mail to you. And he said, okay. I sent the mail, accompanied with questionnaire, 18 questionnaires to be precise. Now, and I also sent some pictures, because I just want them to, look at the pictures and come up with their own story. Then after 5 days, I called Ugochukwu. I've been waiting. Nothing came up. After 5 days, I called him on phone. I said, Ugochukwu, you didn't see the mail I sent to you? He said, no. I said, what? I said, okay, just stay where you are right now. Are you enough? He said, I'm resending it. And I sent it. Instead of Ugochukwu to respond to it, after 30 minutes, Ugochukwu called me and said, don't know, man. You see, there's a, he didn't come, he sent a text message. There's a guy called Obed who is, an expert in that field, that he will answer all my questions. And I said, look, I don't have Obed's contact. He said, don't worry, I will send Obed's contact to you. I have those evidences here. Now, finally, he sent Obed email address. Now, I tried to reach Obed through the email address, and the thing was not going. And I sent a message to him again. I said, guy, this email, check the email and resend. He now said, okay, Obed will call you. Later, they called me. And fortunately, I was in the church then. Then I now sent a message that I'm in the service, so I will call you after service. I said, okay. He now said, pray for us. And I laughed. I said, I've prayed for Abia State very well. Now, when I got to him that evening, and I sent a message, can we talk? He didn't call me. Rather, Obed called. Now, when Obed called, and I said, hello, who am I on to? He said, I'm Obed, the chief, the something advisor, I think, e-governance special advisor to the governor on e-governance and strategies. I said, okay. He said, I've seen your questionnaires and everything that you see. He said, talking black jazz, that the PAMSEC is just talking nonsense simply because the governor has, blocked every hole they make money from.
So when was, sorry to cut you because we really don't have time. When was the last time you spoke with them?
The last time I spoke with Obed was, I think, 3 weeks ago. The last time I spoke to Ugoju, when I found out that he had delayed because Ugoju told me to come to Abia State on August, that I should leave the story and come to this on August. And I was laughing. I told him, I said, just respond to these stories. Let me publish it. Then you can, that August, we can come and see what we've done. Level of
So you had no response from them on
until the day the story was published. The funny thing, when the story was published, when Shawore was about to publish the story, Ugochukwu accordingly called me. I said, "Oh no man, where are we?" I said, "I'm good." I said, "I'm driving." He said, "Please park. I just want to because the governor is waiting for you." I said, "Governor, what for?" He said, how much do you want?"
Okay, they asked you for money. I think.
Said, how much do you want?
Well, I think that's the place for us to actually live this because we're still expecting them. I did say to you when we were supposed to do this last week that we'll move it to today and speak with them, but very unfortunately they've not been able to honor the invitation today. Let's hope that when they do come, we'll have you again here on the program. Many thanks for finding time to come on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Well, we'll stay on the Abia developments when they do respond. But for now, we'll take a moment and we will be back shortly. Stay with us.
At this special time, there is no greater virtue than sharing the nourishment of Peak in special Ramadan packs. Ramadan Kareem from Peak.
Every day as they happen, opinions arise.
I lost money in Africa. Sanusi said he couldn't care about the shareholders. Is that possible?
For and against, they have to be heard.
The government of this dispensation has made a very strong commitment. Yet, bombs keeps going on every day.
People are dying, and we are talking grammar.
Unfeatured.
You are the worst advertisement of the product you are trying to pitch.
Uninhibited.
People are contravening and contradicting traffic rules.
Issues are laid bare.
This is what is called in psychology narcissism. Is worse than megalomania.
And the weight decided by you. Face Off, Wednesdays 8 to 9 p.m. only on Channels Television.
Well, in all of this, we have so many trouble about leadership, followership. People have always talked about how well we can actually, question some of these things, especially when we talk about democracy. Well, joining us to look at the leadership question this morning is a leadership consultant, Tokumbo Obayo. Good morning.
Nice to be here.
Well, we've seen a whole lot happening to the extent that there's one key word we use: don't hit up the polity. You're hitting up the polity, because when people try to ask questions, the next thing you hear is about your attempt at hitting up the polity. What kind of issues are we likely to be looking at when we talk about leadership?
Well, actually, one of the things that we are having as a challenge, I listened to all the earlier contributions from the Ekiti State, the PDP, to the Abia State, and if you look at the things that have been happening in the nation over the last few months, one of the things that's obvious is we need to address the question of where are we going as a nation. Leaders' main assignment is to take a people. I think it was Rosalind Carter who said that good leaders take a people where they want to go.
Where they want to go.
But great leaders take a people where they ought to go. Now, one of the things you see as you look at the national issues is you'll find out that if there is one thing that is lacking, is the absence of people who understand what it means to be leaders. I mean, I listened to you talk to the man from Abia State. Ironically, I took a serious interest in it because my mother was from Abia State.
Oh, what a coincidence, bringing some Abians here
very interesting. And I got it, especially because I have been there. And without having any political inclinations, a lot of what they said is true. There is so much money spent on celebration of the cult of the personality. I went for a convention in Umahia the other time, And when we stopped over in Owerri Airport, the governor was coming from a trip abroad. And literally half of the women of Abia State were there dancing for 4 hours waiting for the governor. And I was embarrassed personally, because I said to myself, if these women had something to do that brought them income, they would not be here dancing. They are not professional dancers. So why are they being paid for dancing for 5 hours to receive a governor who went on an official trip to bring some level of achievement? Now, I'm not necessarily picking on the Abia State governor. I'm just saying those are things that are reflective of the kind of perceptions of leadership that the men who go there are. So I think that's the biggest challenge. I think we have a big challenge in Nigeria, that a lot of people don't understand what leadership means. So when you don't understand something, I think it was Miles Monroe who said that if you don't understand something, you're likely to abuse it. And you're having a situation in Nigeria where many men think that leadership is the position, leadership is the opportunity. I mean, I was just talking to somebody outside there, and I said, in my company, for example, you know, we do leadership, a lot of leadership development, and we've come up with something we call 4Gs. 4Gs meaning that great organizations are built by great people, driving great processes and structures towards great visions. Now, a nation is fundamentally still an organization. It's all of us coming together to, a nation is an agreement by all of us that we will live together for our own common goods. Now, if that nation must become great, it doesn't become great accidentally. It becomes great because certain people take responsibility to facilitate, first of all, the development of the quality of the people. Then you look at the processes and structures. I listened to us talking about, you were asking about constitutional amendment. There are issues in even our constitutional processes that indicate that you're not thinking of processes and structures. You take actions that have no long term. I mean, you could go and look at the River State issue, for example. Someone asked me the other day, said, what do I think about the federal government, the National Assembly taking over the River State House of Assembly? And I said the more fundamental thing is, what do I think about the ability of 5 people to cause so much trouble without being called to order, that 25 people find themselves having to be taken over? So we have the biggest challenge, I would say, when we come to a lot of these problems actually stem from leadership issues. But the question then you have to ask is, what do I mean by leadership issues? Is it just the men at the top? They are part of it. They are, in fact, a significant part, because what they have over the rest of us is a platform for leadership. But they're not the only leaders.
You know, one of the reasons why we're talking about leadership now is because the elections, 2015 elections, in fact, we still have 2014 elections in some states, but 2015 elections are fast approaching. We're seeing people mending fences. I mean, just yesterday we saw the Abga chieftain, kissing his brother from Anambra State, Governor Peter Obi, and we're seeing all of that. I mean, you see what's happening in Ekiti as well, and it would seem that a lot of closing ranks is happening, and consensus candidates is what we're beginning to hear right now. In leadership, consensus, how important is that? Would you take that over, say, internal democracy, for instance?
I think one of the amusing things, if I was smiling a bit, is that, there are different concepts of leadership, and they determine how you drive what leadership is. Now, there is what you call the country club level of leadership. Country club means we have an election. Lagos Country Club does not have to give an account on a year as to how many things they have built. It's not, you know what I'm talking about. We're all friends. Now, one of the challenges that happens in our leadership perception is that too many of our leadership aspirants and the people who want to strive for leadership positions look at it as chieftaincy titles that are attained by accepting the public will. You know what I'm talking about? The kingmakers come together and we allow ourselves to ask, who is the king? And in the process, the office becomes the objective. It is the fact that the office has become the sole objective that leads to you're talking about consensus candidates, because the concept of consensus is what we all agree to. Now, the first issue about consensus candidate, before you get to consensus, is we need to ask ourselves, what do we want? And that's a challenge. One of the problems, like I was saying earlier on, I don't want to just blame the people at the top, because part of the problem we have in Nigeria is that all of us are part of the problem. Our expectations are so short-sighted many times that people who have no idea what they are going to do in places find themselves holding offices that they should not hold, and we cannot expect them to have better performance than what we're having. So as you come towards 2015, 2014, what you see is people using the system to try and achieve their personal objective, because the system itself does not place a demand on asking them, where are you taking us to?
But you know, sometimes some would argue that the followers also have a big influence in the way the leaders really go.
They do. That's the point I'm making. That, you see, when you look at issues, and that's why solving the problem can sometimes look a little bit difficult, there are two main problems. We have a problem, in fact, let me go back and say, the biggest problem we have actually is that across the entire system, there is a lack of knowledge of what we are looking for. It's not from the followers to the men who aspire for leadership. Now, once there is that problem, it means that anybody can come into those positions because you're using the wrong parameters.
So first of all, I mean, you first of all talk about leadership as I mean, you said a leader is someone who takes the people to where they want to go, and then a great leader is someone who takes the people to where they ought to go. Now, you're saying, in essence, that we do not seem to even know where we want to go as a people, so it's very difficult for our leaders to even be taking us there in the very first instance.
That is true.
Talk more of, you know, achieving the level of greatness where they take us to where we ought to be going.
Yes.
It's a very big problem for us.
That is one of the biggest problems we have.
Do you see a way out of it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can do is this. Margaret Mead said once that never doubt the power of a few committed people to change the world. She said, indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. The real big challenge that Nigeria has, and I'll tell you what I think it is the fact that if those who see what needs to be done themselves are too docile. One of the reasons why I would wake up in my house and come to channels early in the morning is because you are providing a platform whereby we can say to the rest of the nation, in the hope that one or two, there's something that I used to be a chemical engineer, though my friends say I still am one. One of the things that you find is there's a process we call a seeding process in solution chemistry. You start trying to make the changes where you can make them. You start trying to see what you can do to seed the process so that the process changes. The big challenge we have in Nigeria right now, and that can be addressed, is that a lot of people, I tell people that there are two kinds of bad leaders. There are the ignorant and the malevolent. And I tell people that the malevolent account for only a small proportion, but the ignorant account for the majority. And if we can begin to make demands for the majority who are ignorant to get to know a little bit more about what leadership is and what it implies, then we are well on the way to solving the problem. And that, for me, is the first solution we've got to address. We've got to stop making excuses for non-leadership performance. That's one of the problems we have in Nigeria.
But sorry if I may come in here,
yes.
But there are those who say, you say making little changes, a few committed making little changes.
Yes.
As individuals, now, where can we start? As individuals,
yes.
Where we are. How do we start?
We start from, if you're a family man, you start from understanding what it means to lead your children. You know that a lot of the problems we have in Nigeria come from families in reality. Many Nigerians become fathers and all they do is provide the biological equipment to deliver fatherhood. Their children are not brought up with a value system of where they want to become and what they want to be. I mean, I've been around the education sector, for example. My daughter was 5 years old, taking an exam to enter reception. And the mother of another child at the age of 5 called the daughter and said, if they ask you any question, look at the wall. The answers are all over there. And I had to turn to my wife and say, why are you teaching a 5-year-old how to take a shortcut to do an exam that's only asking ABC? What do you expect that child to do when he's 20, basically? So there is the element of all of us having to start from that sector. Secondly, we need to all as individuals begin to refuse to accept that certain things are normal. Do you know how much Nigerians give? We give people permission to fail. You know, they were talking about universities and world's top universities. And the vice chancellor of one of our universities got up and said, it's not fair to compare Nigerian universities with worldwide universities. You see, because we're so far behind. And I said to the person who was sitting beside me, I said, what he's already done is provided himself an excuse for his failing. Whereas what he should say is, yes, we are far behind. We need to see what we can do to make progress. Now, we all, and it happens, I must confess, this thing we're talking about, why are we surprised to know about the quality of men who hold leadership positions in Nigeria?
And that's a leader, the Vice Chancellor of the university.
Yes, he's already a leader. If you walk into offices in Nigeria, you'll see how men who hold these offices, how much commitment they make to high-level performance is low. You know, I was talking about great organizations, great visions. How many people have a place they are going to? And I'm talking of individually. Now, a man who does not have a place he's going to when he's in a family, now you expect that he will arrive at Aso Rock and suddenly discover where he's going to. Aso Rock doesn't profile on him or confer on him certain ability to see. It is the scene he carried into Aso Rock that he will be seen when he's in Aso Rock. It really depends that he has more power.
You know, would you recommend, because now we're turning out young graduates daily, young professionals from different trades or crafts, and these are supposed to be leaders in their different professions or fields. Should we start, how do we start this grooming? Because as you rightly said, if it comes upon you like maybe a surprise without expectation, you're bound to fail because you're not prepared for it.
If I have my way, I'll tell you what I'd love to do if I had my way. First thing I'd like us to do as a nation is to begin a national discourse on leadership. Research shows, for example, that in an organization, if they begin to even talk about leadership on a regular basis, that is, they don't have a clear format for discussion, they don't have a good idea of how to discuss it, but every morning, like we're doing here on channels, we're discussing what do we do to improve our leadership, how can our leadership. Research shows that the organization's performance almost doubles just for discussing the subject. In other words, somewhere along the line, the subject gets on the table.
You don't think that the discussion on the Constitution is a step in that direction?
No. The discussion on the Constitution is actually, you see, our challenge with the Constitution is that our Constitution was not developed out of a vision. Processes and structures are like vehicles. The Constitution is a vehicle. The vehicle says, I mean, if you looked at one of the constitutions I love the most, the American Constitution, it starts with certain philosophical constructs of where they are trying to go. We hold this truth to be self-evident. All men are created equal by God. And it starts with a letter that's written to King George, saying, to you, King George, when we came as a nation, we want you to understand that this, our rebellion, was not lightly entered into, because we hold that government exists for several purposes, for the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That has established what we are trying to do. So everything we are putting in subsequent to that, that is what the Constitution is now, is designed to achieve our ultimate vision and objective. You know, I've talked about great visions. Now, what we are spending a lot of time doing is arguing over letters of laws that have no coherent objective that they want to achieve. For example, if you're talking about the quality of life, let me give an example. We're talking about human rights and the quality of life. Why do we want human rights? Because the idea is that if you have your right and I have my right, together we'll all ensure that society is good. Now you go into a Senate discussion, and senators decide to approve by majority that a 12-year-old girl can be married.
However inadvertently.
Exactly, sorry?
However inadvertently.
Yes. So
because, I mean, the Senate has come out to say that was not what happened.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know, in closing this argument this morning, or the discuss this morning, would you advocate that, well, we should all try and see how we can, well, rejig our political leadership? Perhaps since a whole lot of Nigerians see some of these people as role models, it can transcend into the populace.
Yeah, I think, you know, I get clear what I was saying. I was talking about having a national discourse. The second thing we need to do is to make sure that people who go into leadership in Nigeria have themselves gone through extensive developmental processes. There's nothing wrong with, even if we need to put it as a law, let's do it. I was talking to a senator a few years ago, and I was telling him how I got into leadership training. And I said less than 5% of men who hold office in Nigeria have ever gone through any intensive leadership training. I don't mean they've not gone for courses, but if you see how Nigerians go for courses, is they show up in the morning, they drink tea, and they go shopping. That's not courses. I mean, and you know, he said to me, he said, I want to make a confession to you. He said, I have never gone to one myself. And he said, and what you said is absolutely correct. So if we need to get further, our leaders themselves need to recognize that there's a gap. We need to put a standard for them, and they need to go back and start saying, maybe have more exposure to these things. And then the other thing we need to do very seriously is we need to develop a transparency process. Let these things be done in the open. Let our leaders have to account for where they are going and where they are taking us. You know why? One of the reasons for the State of the Union address in the US is to tell the government, the people, where they are going. In Britain, Prime Minister's question time every weekend puts the Prime Minister on the spot. He has to say where we're going.
I really think I will have to bring you, even though, well, you had to come back. But all the same, many thanks for finding time to join us this morning, Tukumbo Baya. Well, he's a leadership consultant. We'll take another moment here on Sunrise Daily, and we'll be back shortly. Join us again. Well, an interesting moment it's been. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sulaiman Alede.
Thank you. I'm Maukwe Ogun.
Thank you. I'm Neo Taibe.
I'll see you again.